Hey guys, welcome back to my YouTube channel. I am Janine Harry, a communication scientist by profession, here to give you communication tips and self awareness strategies through conversation. So, thank you so much for joining me. And in today's particular YouTube video, I am going to be discussing the importance of practicing the sacred pause in communication. So, thank you so much for joining me. So, let's get right into it. Now, for the most part, you may have always heard people say things like, you have got to think before you speak. And we know this to be true, right? We know that we should be thinking before saying anything. However, we do not always do this. We actually all find ourselves guilty of being in situations where we forget to think before we speak. And this is why we should not be demonizing ourselves or others for not thinking before they speak. Because at the end of the day, thinking before you speak takes a great deal of self awareness. And self awareness is not something that we learn overnight, it's not something that we can perfect in a short amount of time. It takes a lot of practice because self awareness is a muscle that needs to be strengthened. And also, it is important to note that when we embark on the process of communicating for the very first time, we do not enter communicative events from a space of self awareness. And this is why many young kids will say so many things without thinking. And we actually laugh about this, but it's true. So many kids say things without speaking. They end up embarrassing their parents. They end up saying some really crazy things. They definitely have no filter whatsoever. And this is because kids do not have the level of self awareness that adults have. So, yes, self awareness is something that we learn to have over time. But at the end of the day, it is not always something that each and everyone is good at having or good at practicing or good at doing. It is, as I said, a muscle that needs to be strengthened. So, yes, so we should be thinking before we speak. And we should also be remembering that thinking before we speak takes a great deal of self awareness. And self awareness is something, as I said, that should be learned and embodied. Now, as I said, there's absolutely nothing wrong with finding yourself in instances where you do not think before you speak. It's actually quite natural to step into communicative events with a very low level of self awareness. But I'm going to be very firm when I say this. When you make a conscious effort to be blunt and to purposefully hurt people in conversation, that right there is a huge problem. That is a huge no, okay? Because being blunt in conversation actually says more about you. It actually gives insight into the fact that you are an insecure person. And I did speak about insecure people in a previous YouTube video. I said that insecure people live with the perpetual fear that people are out to get them. They literally believe that within communicative events, people are going to hurt them through verbal gestures. And because of this belief, they will actually adopt a coping mechanism. And this coping mechanism entails attacking before they are being attacked. And I've actually had the unfortunate experience of meeting people like this. Somebody actually told me once that they are a very judgmental person. And what was even more shocking is the fact that they said this in such a way that it made it seem as though they were quite proud of the fact that they were judgmental. It was as though they were wearing the judgmental behavior like a badge of honor. They even went as far as saying things like, you know what, I would love to post on social media, but I know that if I'm going to post things on social media, people might be offended. And I was thinking to myself, like, why are you so certain that people will be offended by what you have to say? And then it hit me. If people already know that others are going to be offended by what they are saying, then they are already making that conscious effort to be blunt and hurtful within communicative events. So, as mentioned, nothing wrong with having slip ups, nothing wrong with finding yourself in instances where you do not think before you speak. The problem is when we are conscious about it. The problem is when we enter into communicative events with the sole aim of wanting to be blunt, with the sole aim of wanting to hurt people, with the sole aim of not wanting to have self awareness. That is the problem right there. So, how do we move from this space of having complete lack of self awareness, whether this happens naturally by default or whether we actually really don't want to take responsibility? What do we do about this? Okay, this is where practicing the sacred pause comes in. Practicing the sacred pause entails assessing what you are about to say. And this means that before you say literally anything, not just specific things, but literally anything, before you say anything, I want you to establish if what you are about to say makes you sound like a wounded person or makes you sound like a healed person. Now, not a lot of people might know what it means to be a wounded person or what it means to be a healed person. So I'm going to break this down for you, right? In order to establish whether what you are about to say makes you sound like a wounded person or a healed person, you need to establish what is the goal or outcome of your verbal gesture. You also need to establish what you are aiming to achieve through saying what you are about to say. And you also finally need to establish what reaction you are hoping to get. Okay? So, for example, if you are about to tell somebody you are fat or you are ugly, you need to practice this sacred pause. You need to ask yourself, what is the goal or the outcome of my verbal gesture? Am I trying to uplift somebody or am I trying to hurt somebody's feelings? You need to establish what is the aim that you are hoping to achieve through saying what you are saying. What are you hoping to get out of the situation? What are you hoping what should happen? You should establish what reaction you are hoping to get. Do you want this person to become defensive? Do you want this person to become argumentative with you? When you start asking these questions, the best thing about it is that you gain a level of self awareness that you may not have had previously. Because asking these questions puts a spotlight on your communicative behavior, which in turn puts a spotlight on who you are as a person. Now, when you are able to practice the sacred pause within communication, you will actually be able to establish if what you are about to say should be said or whether it should not be said at all. So when you begin to establish it, hey, what I am about to say stems from a wounded part of me, it is within that moment that you will be like, you know what, maybe I should not be saying whatever I need to say or whatever I feel I need to say. Maybe I should hold back. Maybe I should do some introspection. Maybe I should work on myself. The greatest thing about the sacred pause is that it's not even a pause at all. Because a lot of people will say things like, well, I do not have time to practice this sacred pause. Communication is fast. We're living in a fast paced society. There's no time to just take a pause and to think. However, when you are engaged in the act of self awareness and self awareness becomes almost second nature to you, then the sacred pause happens almost by default. It's something that you will never or no longer even have to think about as time goes by. And I think it is so important for us to continuously expand this conversation and having the sacred pause Because so many people, they want to go on to doing great things in life. They want to teach, they want to lead, they want to have awesome connections with people. But in order to be a great teacher, in order to be a great leader, in order to be a great friend, in order to build good connections with people, we need to always be mindful about our communicative practices. And mindfulness within communication lays solely upon the foundation of always practicing that sacred pause. So, if you've made it this far in the video, I want to thank you so much for keeping up. And I'd like to leave you with a quote of wisdom, like I always do. And today's quote says, "A smart person knows what to say, a wise person knows whether to say it or not." And I absolutely love that. Guys, thank you so much for making it this far. If you liked this video, please give it a thumbs up. You can also subscribe to my YouTube channel. You can follow me on Instagram at Infinia Communications. You can read my blog articles at janineharry90.wordpress.com, or you can email me at janineharry90@gmail.com. Till next time, much love.